Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're looking at yet another 35mm SLR. As you probably guessed by now, these are by far my most favourite camera with me anyway, although I do like 120 folders as well. But today we're looking at another camera from Konica, and this is one of the earlier ones. I believe this dates back to 1968. And this is the Konica Autoreflex T, and you can tell it's the original T because the on-off button for the metering is on the back. There was a newer version of this, which is commonly known as the T2, although it's not labelled as a T2, and you can identify that camera because this will be on the top. So this is an original Autoreflex T from 1968. Its claim to fame is it is the first focal plane shuttered camera that has through the lens metering, and also has an automatic mode as well. As you can probably guess, being the date, this is a shutter priority camera because it has a mechanical shutter. This one is fitted with a rather nice lens actually. This is fitted with the 57mm 1.4. And this also has although it's hard to get off, it also has a filter on the front of the lens as well. So let's take the filter off. Very heavy with this lens, it's the best part of 1 kilogram, so it's a heavy chunk of metal and glass, but yeah, you can see the front of the lens there. It's a rather nice lens, that one. But yeah, Autoreflex T. This was Konica's attempt to break into the professional market, really. Very high quality camera. It has a metal vertical travelling shutter, but its real claim to fame, like I say, is through the lens metering at full aperture as well. It's not stopped down. It's only stopped down with some of the earlier lenses. And when these cameras were launched, Konica didn't have an awful lot of lenses in the range. So they made adapters. I have got the two of them. There's one which is with an M42 mount adapter. So you could obviously use your M42 mount lenses on this body. And the other one I have is for Nikon F. So you could put your Nikon lenses on a Konica body. They kind of did it the wrong way round, really. You want to make sure you've got a good set of lenses when you launch a camera system. Anyway, it's a bayonet mount. To remove the lens, you push that in, turn anti-clockwise a quarter turn, and the lens comes off. There you can see the back of the lens. Let's put that to one side. So looking at the front, as you saw earlier, there's no hot shoe on this, so we have an X and M connection down here for flash. This little lever down here is the lens release. That's what's locking the lens on. This button here is a depth of field preview. This camera has a depth of field preview. So you push this in and it will stop down, so you can gauge the depth of field. There's a self timer. I'm not sure if this is cocked. So you can set the self timer. It's also got mirror lockup as well when you do that. There we go. Quite loud. A couple of straps, lug straps on each side. The name here, Autoreflex in one word, with the T. Nice Konica logo. On the back, don't get a memory card slot holder. And to open the back of these, it's this catch at the bottom here. It's not one of these ones where you pull up on this. So if you've got one of these, you could damage it by trying to pull this in the up position. On the top, we have a self-resetting frame counter. We have the film advance, very nice. Shutter release, threaded for a cable as well, so you put a cable release into there. We have shutter speed selector, so that's 125th, which, as you'll notice, being in red, is the flash sync speed as well, which is pretty fast for the time. Shutter speed from 1,000th, and it goes all the way down to 1 second. This override it will only allow you to select shutter speeds that's within its metering range. If you want to override the metering, you have to push this little button down, and it will then allow you to select a longer shutter speed. So this is going all the way down to 1 second plus B. To set the ISO, it's the usual lift the collar up, is that going to focus, in the centre, and adjust it so it goes from 1600 right the way down to 25. So you just lift this up. It also has the din setting is in there as well, and it goes back over there. And we're going to set that. What's the red one showing on there? It's showing 100, 200. So we're going to set it on 200. Okay. This is only for rewinding the film when you've finished exposing it. Pretty standard. Like I say, this doesn't pull up, and to turn the metering on and off is at the back here. So that turns the metering on and off. On the bottom we have the push in to rewind the film. We have a battery compartment. It uses the mercury cell of the period, so you need to use a wean cell or an adapter with more modern batteries. And there is a check, and that will just line, there's a needle in the viewfinder, and it will line up with a mark on the aperture scale. The viewfinder display is a list of apertures, and it has a red section at the top and the bottom. Depending on the lens that's fitted, those will move about, because when it couples to the lens mechanically, it will know what sort of lens is fitted on the camera. Like I say, to open the back, pull that catch down, then we can see in the back very large pressure plate. It says Sakura Colour, that's their own brand of film, because Konica did make film back in the day. Multi-slot take-up spool, which is quite interesting because it's got this double. You can see that the one inside moves in the opposite direction as the one on the outside, so it's quite a clever system. Sprocket drive, and there you can see the vertical metal shutter. That's what's giving it the high flash sync speed. And as I said, this doesn't move up, so you need to be a bit careful. To open the back, you use this catch at the bottom. Very solid camera, really well made, real quality item. There you can see the throat. This little catch here tells the body if the lens is set to the EE position. Okay, put the lens back on. You can see this lens is a very nice piece of glass to mount a lens on it. You've got the red dot to the red dot and turn. In normal use, when you're using it in the automatic mode, you have this set on the EE. To change it to take it off of the EE setting, you just move it across. Oh, sorry, the focus. So you can, this is a 1.4, so this goes from 1.4 down to 16. And then in the EE position. Right, let's put this filter back on just to protect the lens. Like so, a long thread. And even have the original cap for it. So yeah, T2, very, very similar, but the difference is that the on-off switch will be on the top rather than on the back. That's the way you can tell the difference between them. This is a proper Mark 1 T. Okay, let's pop some film in it, show you how to load it. And quite a few of you have been asking about unloading cameras. 35mm cameras pretty much follow the same sort of pattern. The spool goes in normally on the left hand side. There's very few cameras that I've come across where it goes on the right hand side. This comes across, and you just feed this in until it stops, like so, and then goes across like so. As you know, I like to tighten this up. Oh, it didn't go. He says it's kind of multi-slotted, this take-up spool. So. There we go. Close the back down. And you can see, because this one's rotating, that will tell you that the film is being transported through the camera. This one's got a rather lazy shutter button on it. Okay, this was 200 film, but because it is colour negative, I'm going to overexpose it. So you've gone all the way through and you've shot off your 36. You can see that that's now showing on 1. So you've gone through and you've taken all of your images. The way you'd use this camera in the automatic mode is that you would select the shutter speed, and they actually recommend that you use 125 in the daytime, and in low light use a 30th. But you can see with this film it's allowing me to use down to a half a second. The stop will vary depending upon the lighting conditions. It's basically won't allow you to use the camera outside of the zone that it can meter in. It's quite a clever idea, actually. So you just select your shutter speed. If you look in the viewfinder, it will tell you the recommended, well, the aperture that it's actually going to use. The other thing with this camera is, depending on the focal length of the lens, the metering pattern will vary. When you're using a standard lens or a telephoto lens, that's one with a higher focal length, say a 135 or an 85 or a 200, it will tend to meter more in the centre. When you use a lens that's wider, say a 28mm or a 35, or I do have a 15mm that fits these as well, it tends to use a wider field. So if you can imagine, rather than metering just in the centre, it tends to meter across the centre like so. So it meters a wider area, and it adjusts that depending on the focal length of the lens, which is quite clever, really. It's not something that I've seen on many cameras where the metering pattern depends on the focal length of the lens. That's quite an advanced feature for 1968, really. Very, very clever cameras. Konica were very, very innovative. When we look back at some of the cameras that I've already shown on the channel, things like the first autofocus compact, the first compact with a built-in flash, this, which was the first TTL camera with automation. Yeah, very, very interesting. They're a very innovative company. But unfortunately, they never really broke into the professional market. It was always, well, in the 70s, it was Nikon. The 70s really was Nikon's heyday. Everybody was using, well, they could afford it, or whether they were professionals, they were using f2s, and also the Nikon Fs as well, the original Nikon Fs. So Konica never really broke into the professional market. I've already covered their last SLR, which was the FS motor, was it? The FT motor from 1987. I think we've already shown that one on this channel. But yeah, I do like Konica. I'm a bit of a Konica fanboy. The lenses are brilliant. This mount doesn't really adapt particularly well to other cameras mirrorless because of the flange depth, the distance between the lens and the film plane. These lenses will work on mirrorless cameras like the Fujis and the Sonys, etc. So the lenses aren't particularly sought after, and they're quite affordable, and they are really high quality glass. You know, they do have a very, very good reputation. Right, so there we are, folks. That's the camera for today. Oh, I was going to show you how to unload the camera. Pretty much the same with most SLRs. When you've finished, you push this little button in down here, and all that does is it disengages the wind so that you can actually wind the film back the other way. If you fold out the rewind crank, if you turn it in the opposite direction, he says, might be that you've got to hold this button in. Yeah, hold it in. Some will stay in, others like this one you've got to hold in. And then you wind. Now, if you're sending it away to be processed, you can just wind and wind and wind, and as long as you want, really, because you're going to wind the film right back into the cassette. If, like me, you develop your films at home, you want to keep the leader out. As soon as you hear it click from this side, stop winding, because you want to torn the film. That's what comes with being brutal with it, isn't it? Yeah, I messed that up totally. Well, but when this button's pushed in, you'll see that this will go backwards. So because I didn't hold it in, I managed to rip the film. If that happens, you need to get yourself a changing bag, and then you can get the film out in daylight, or go into a darkened room and unload the camera then. This isn't the end of the world. I can just cut this off and reuse it again. But that's how you would unload the film. Have I got another one here that I can try that with? Just to show you without messing it up. Yeah, here's another one here, look. So, loading, pop your film in, pull it across into your slots on here. Yeah, that shutter release is a bit reluctant to come back. That needs a bit of sorting out, needs using. I do tell people this in almost every video: use your cameras. They don't like sitting around not being used. So there it is, ready to use. We've taken our pictures, so we want to get the film out. We push this button up. On this one we seem to have to hold it up. Fold out the rewind crank. Wait until you hear it come off the spool. There you go. Open the back up, and there it is with the leader out. If you don't want to leave the leader out, you can just wind it right the way in. But like I said, because I do my own processing, I like to leave this bit out. It makes it a lot easier for loading spirals. Right, thank you very much for watching. Hope you found that interesting. Really nice cameras, highly recommended. And yeah, this is the Autoreflex T. This was the one from 1968. The first SLR with through the lens metering, full aperture as well, so it doesn't have to be used in stop down mode. And yeah, with an automatic mode as well, even though it's shutter priority. Thank you for watching. Comments, questions, queries, etc. down below. If you're a fellow Konica fanboy, let us know what sort of gear you're using, what cameras you like. I do have a T3N, which is the later version of this, which I will be doing in a video at some point as well. Please like, subscribe, and all the usual good stuff, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.